Welcome to 404 Cybersecurity Not Found, where we break through the noise of the digital world. Here we dissect the latest security trends, confront emerging threats, and arm you with the knowledge you need.
Welcome back to another episode of 404 Cybersecurity Not Found. Today's episode is all about the convergence of AI and quantum computing and what that means for the cybersecurity industry. My name's Brad, I'm the host of today's episode, and I'd like to introduce the CEO of Samurai Security, Dr. David Day.
Hi.
Hello. So before we get into today's topic, I think it is worth mentioning that in order to understand some of the topics discussed today, it would be beneficial for the listeners to go ahead and look at episode 1 and 2. The first covering AI and cybersecurity, and the second looking at how quantum can change the world, and especially in the cyber industry. So before we talk about the convergence of those two topics, at a high level, let's just have a chat about how AI applies to cybersecurity as it stands today. What are its uses, Dave?
Well, one of the great benefits of AI at the moment is the fact that in situations where we have masses and masses of data, huge amounts of data, and we need to make sense of it, AI is much better at doing that quickly than we are, as mentioned in episode 1. Some examples of that are with network intrusion detection systems and SIEM systems. And, to give an example, I did a forensic investigation relatively recently, which involved me having to be sent a bunch of logs from different systems. And I used Splunk as a SIEM. If you want to call Splunk a SIEM, that's a point that could be argued another time, to try to find correlations and timings of network streams, network sessions, the timing of them, the length of them, the size of them, the port numbers they were using, the protocols they were using, the systems that were communicating between them. And I had, lots of different logs that I was trying to look at simultaneously almost to try to fathom out what the issue was. And the difficulty with doing that in this particular occasion, and many people who are SOC analysts will agree with me here, is that you don't always get the logs in the format that you want. They come in different formats. So I was getting some logs were coming in as spreadsheets, some were coming in, in different formats for different SIEMs, some were coming in firewall logs, and they were coming in all different shapes and sizes with different, column layouts and different ways of labeling the attributes of the data.
Some even as PDFs, if I remember.
Yeah. PDF, or PDFs, Word documents, spreadsheets, log files, all sorts, in a complete mishmash of different formats, making it very difficult to make sense of it. And this is part of the issue that we face. We need to search through all of this data and correlate all of this data, even though it's in what is termed an unstructured fashion. There's no uniform, decided way of holding this data. And therefore, we're in a situation where we have to do unstructured searches. And unstructured searches are a pain, a real pain. So to give you some examples of, and AI can help with this, right? So AI, if it's been appropriately trained, across the right data sources with masses of information, not just the information from that organization, but the information from many other organizations as well. Obviously pseudonymized with and anonymized with key private, sensitive personal information redacted, but nevertheless still trained with multiple sources of data. And we have to shift through all this, and AI is better at that than we are because it can work faster, it can spot differences quicker. So if you think of anomaly detection, for example, again, we're having to deal with diverse data formats, and we have to try to identify unusual network behaviors and patterns, where things just don't look right, and at the moment there's a bit of intuition involved in there. Sometimes you just look through this, that doesn't quite look right. But the AI deals with this in a different way. It doesn't use intuition, it uses trained data sets to spot when something isn't right. So AI is very good with these unstructured searches in spotting potential threats without having to have predefined structures. And that's very useful for responding to novel or evolving cyber attacks. It offers more flexibility and adaptability. So it can adapt to continuous evaluation of cyber threats because it can be trained with more data. Every time an attack takes place, some of the more modern systems and intrusion detection systems and SIEM systems and vendor systems will be trained with these data sets. And in fact, not only that, they will share with each other these data sets. So new attacks coming in, they simulate this information very quickly and make it available to the AI in this instance, because we're talking about AI. So it becomes very flexible and adaptable to this continuous evolution of cyber threats. And it's very good at responding to novel or unknown indicators of compromise that, as a professional, maybe we haven't seen before. But the AI would have seen a lot more because it's been trained with much more data. So the strength of unstructured searches and AI's ability to work with unstructured searches, can be seen with SIEM systems, which are brilliant at combining and performing analysis information from multiple sources, many different sources. There's some awesome, it can be very good for incident investigation, some awesome incident investigation tools which can search through vast data sets during a security breach. We can uncover, using AI, crucial evidence without there being any pre-established patterns. So we're not using, basic signature matches. We're looking for traits of things which look incorrect. So it's the unstructured searching is very powerful with AI, and in particular its ability to find hidden relationships between different security events which we might not see, and it's very, very difficult to find with traditional tools because of the aforementioned issues with getting logs and file formats in all kinds of unusual and bizarre ways, which probably makes sense to each vendor, but the vendors don't tend to talk to each other, and why would they? They're not on the same team. So AI is very good at that, at dealing with these unstructured data searches that are necessary within cybersecurity.
And I know that in my experience with incident response, especially at the start of the engagement, it's not common to have any form of IOCs. So when you've got all of these different data sources from firewalls, from antiviruses, whatever it may be, not only do you have to combine and correlate information between different sets of data, but there's a lot of it. Log files are definitely not small by any means. They can be extremely
terabytes sometimes.
You open up a log file, and I couldn't imagine being a forensic investigator and scrolling through every single line of action within that system.
It has got easier since AI. Before, I mean, it's better now, but it's still a pain. It was horrific before.
Yeah, I remember being involved in investigations 3, 4 years ago, and it was a case of pulling it all into a scene platform such as Splunk, um, and going through it line by line. Whereas,
Yeah,
like you
pretty
say,
much.
with the involvement of AI, not only, I mean, historically, there's quite a lot of control Fs, and you try and find a specific IP that might look a bit strange. Is it logged in here? Is it logged in there? What's it doing on this system? Not only can it do that with far more accuracy, like you say, it can correlate different events that to a standard investigator don't seem linked.
I mean, with traditional, with your traditional tools, with things like Splunk or whatever other scene platforms are available, QRadar, whatever whatever it might be. Um, you know, you can work on your hypothesis, so you have to have some kind of intuition as to what might be going on, and then you test your hypothesis. So you think, well,
Mm.
maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, and then you can put in rules that can test that hypothesis. However, first of all, you're just testing rule by rule and just basing it on your own experience, which, depending on how experienced you are, could be accurate or could be wrong. But then you're also facing the additional challenge, the initial challenge, which is to try to get the data all into the same format. So when you write a rule, the rule will check across all the different data formats to find what you're looking for. So sanitizing and formatting that data in the first instance is incredibly time consuming as well. And then once you've done that, you then have to go through the process of coming up with your hypotheses, varying hypotheses, and testing them out using rule-based systems. Now, the AI doesn't work in that way. It doesn't come up with a hypothesis in that way. First of all, it will get the data in the right structure for you very quickly. And then secondly, it looks for commonalities between the data of what it perceives to be bad based on all the training that it's had. So it's very powerful in that regard.
You definitely can't eliminate the need for an experienced professional. At least right now we can't.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this with false positives, didn't we, the other week? And yeah, you're right. I mean, the experienced professional has whatever the AI throws at you. The experienced professional can then think, do you know what? Is that actually relevant or not? Because it might not be. And then can sort of use the manual process, which we just discussed, to test the hypothesis of what the AI has come up with. Or the AI might find correlations which are just utterly meaningless. But it all depends how good the AI is and how well it's been trained as well, of course.
Yeah, you are entirely limited to the data source in which you're providing it with and the training that AI is given. There's two challenges there. It's of course the training and the data set, but it's also the power and the resources that the AI has access to. But in the context of incident response and finding certain IOCs and potential things to investigate, an analogy that works well for me to understand this is you can load in every single Harry Potter book into an LLM, and you can tell it, find me the exact page, chapter, and line where Harry draws out the ticket in the Goblet of Fire, and it will just go through all of that data and find the exact place. And when you apply that to cybersecurity and incident response and investigations, you have a hypothesis that, well, does Harry draw it out, or is it Ron or Hermione or whatever it may be, and it can go and challenge and check to see if the data supports that theory. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you could just ask a train spotter; they would probably know. But no, I love train spotters. Honestly, you're my friends. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It does make sense. Yeah.
And when we address those two issues around the data that you provide it, I think combining this with the emergence of quantum and the incredible power that can be applied to AI with this new technology, how do you think that when these two technologies converge together and work hand in hand, how will that impact cybersecurity and some of the topics we've just been discussing?
Okay. Well, I mean, if we just roll back very briefly to episode 2's topic of quantum computing, the first thing I'd like to make clear is the fact that we are certainly not there yet. And everything I'm saying, everything I talked about in episode 2 and what I'm going to be discussing today with regards to quantum computing as well, is all based on theory. None of this yet is practice. How far away it is, I don't know. So we're talking about the potential here of how quantum could help. And in terms of that, the one of the most wonderful things that is becoming apparent, the potential, the exciting potential of quantum computing is this ability to search many things incredibly quickly. So like one of the analogies I was given once is it's a bit like a maze, right? So if you're trying to find your way out of a maze, you're searching for the correct path to get out of the maze, right? So you're plonked on the outside and think, all right, I need to get to the middle. And you start to take one path there. Oh dear, you hit a dead end. I mean, we all know the stick to the right wall rule. Actually, that does always get you there in the end. But the problem with that, of course, is the fact that it isn't the most efficient route, but it will work. That's completely by the by. That's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. You try one route, you hit a dead end. Okay, that didn't work. Go back, try and remember where you've been so you don't make the same mistake again. Try a different route, try a different route, try a different route. And you keep trying these different routes, don't you? And keep getting blocked and going back to where you were before and trying again. When we consider how superposition can work, and how it combines with entanglement, CF episode 2, then we're in a situation where ultimately what's happening is we're looking down all the paths at the same time and then deciding which one's correct. So it's almost like a search that's happening instantaneously across all paths rather than it being sequential. And that means that the whole ability to search for something is much, much quicker. So when we're thinking about quantum in terms of assisting AI with cybersecurity, so first of all, we know AI is good with working with unstructured searches. But when we combine it with quantum and its ability to perform unstructured searches so incredibly quick in parallel, then we're in a state where we have quantum speed up. So we don't have to wait as long for the AI to work through its data correlation. Because at the moment, it's not instant. You don't click a button and it says, hey, I found these correlating. You have to wait, and you have to wait quite a long time. And it might be that you wait like a few hours and what it comes back with isn't really what you want, and then you have to do it again, right? With quantum computing, that would be almost instant, that it would find those correlations. And it would find a exponential amount more than you would do with traditional AI.
So my assumption here is that in the last episode we talked about how you can, with the traditional approach of computing as we know it, it's ones and zeros, and you're limited by the speed of your processor and RAM and all of that good stuff. I understand that quantum computing can, blow the lid off the glass ceiling as it currently stands with how much power we've got to throw at machines. So what you're saying here is it's not only the huge amount of power that we'll get access to, but also the approach of solving problems utilizing things like entanglement and superposition will enable us to get there even quicker on top of the extra computing power that it gives us.
Yeah, they call it quantum speed up. But when you think about it, as soon as you introduce exponentially more speed, you're opening up exponentially more opportunities. And algorithms and software, how it utilizes processes at the moment, its usefulness is limited by the speed in which the machine can operate. When we move to a state where we can operate far, far faster, then the software that is utilizing that capability is going to be designed to maximize that speed, and therefore the mannerisms in which it works are going to shift. you want me to give you an example?
Yeah.
An analogy? Maybe that will help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's have a think about this in this unstructured data search issue. Imagine you have a search party, right? And this search party is looking for a golden trophy. And imagine the search party. What I'm doing is I'm giving you an analogy to an algorithm that's been written for quantum computing. That algorithm is called Grover's algorithm. It's probably the most talked about algorithm to make use of quantum computing. I still think that these algorithms are going to have to be shifted an awful lot as time progresses, as people make a better understanding of quantum computing, how to make use of it. But Grover's is about the best we've got right now. So let's go back to the analogy. Let's imagine you're on a field or a park. It doesn't really matter where you are, maybe a wooded area. And you have a search party. And let's say you have a search party of, I don't know, 1,000 people. It doesn't matter. The number's not relevant. 1,000 people. And these 1,000 people are all searching for the trophy. And if you think of this in a traditional sense, each person would have a look for the trophy, wouldn't they? They'd search for the trophy. Is it there? No, it's not. Is it over here? No, it's not. Is it over here? No, it's not. And everybody would be doing the same, right? They'll probably have their own little patch to cover, perhaps, where they're looking for this trophy. If we think of this in terms of Grover's algorithm, and this is an incredibly simplified analogy because Grover's algorithm is incredibly complex, and we would need far more time than we've got now to discuss it. So this is hugely simplified. Imagine all the participants scan for the golden trophy using their eyesight, and what they're working with, what they're looking for is a reflection of the trophy. It's a really highly polished golden trophy, right? It's really shiny. I'll say everybody wants it. It's still being shiny. And they're all searching around for it. Now, the determination of how close they are to the trophy is, and whether they've found the trophy is going to be determined by how reflective it is, how bright the thing shines. And obviously, the closer you get to the shiny reflective trophy, the brighter it's going to shine at you. Now, in this particular scenario, each individual person is performing this search simultaneously. However, they can all communicate with each other simultaneously as well, which they could do actually by shouting. So imagine a scenario where if they see a really bright reflection, they'll shout loudly. If they see quite a dim reflection, then they'll maybe be more of a quiet shout. But regardless of the amplitude of their voice, everybody in the 1,000 search party could hear it. You have to make that jump and just imagine that they can. Now, in this particular scenario, they are being guided by their auditory and visual cues. Searchers move towards areas where the shouts are louder. So the louder they hear somebody shouting, the more they gravitate towards that area. So the area in which we're now searching for this trophy is reducing. So we're not only trying to search a huge area, with each iteration, we're trying to reduce the size of the search space to one which is more likely for us to find the trophy. Because you have to bear in mind, they could be looking at other things reflecting. Maybe somebody threw a spoon in a hedge, or somebody took a wrapper off a Rolo. I don't know. There's lots of things that could take them in the wrong direction. But the brighter the reflection, and the louder they search from their peers, the more likely they are to be searching in the right area for the right thing. And this is an iterative process which can actually reduce the search area by root n. In other words, the square root of the area that you're looking at. So it becomes an awful lot faster. And this is similar to how Grover's algorithm works in a very simplified state. So Grover's algorithm has a couple of parts to it. The first one is it talks about the oracle, and the oracle is basically, you know, what you're looking for. You're evaluating the presence of something being within a certain place. That's what the oracle is. So in this particular case, each searcher's eyesight is acting like the oracle. And then we have the shouts that people make, louder or softer, depending on the strength of the reflection. And this can be thought of as the amplification mechanism within Grover's algorithm. And these are all, this algorithm works upon the principles of superposition and entanglement. And that's how, in an extremely simplified sense, that quantum computing can speed up this search. So another way of thinking about this is like if you were looking at books in a library, for example. Let's say you went into a library and none of the books were catalogued. Right? It's an unstructured search. In the same way as the field example was an unstructured search. There's no definition to it. And let's say you went into a library and nobody's done a book catalogue, and somebody says, if we're going to use your book analogy, somebody says, "Oh, I want to find." I don't know. I struggle with your analogy because I don't know anything about Harry Potter. What was it called? Goblet of Fire or something? I want to find the book Goblet of Fire, and they go searching for this Goblet of Fire book. Now, let me ask you, Brad, if you were in the library looking for Goblet of Fire and there was absolutely nothing books are in total random order, how would you find Goblet of Fire?
Start at one end and just work my way through. Not looking at each individual, but I know what the book looks like in a rough sense. It's quite a large one. It's hardbacked, so I'd probably just look for small visual indicators, like, oh, maybe that big one could be it, or perhaps.
But you'd have to mark off, wouldn't you, where you'd looked, I suppose. So maybe you could probably scan 8 or 9. You wouldn't need to look at each book individually. Maybe you could back away and scan a few of them, perhaps, and you might be able to do that. That would speed it up a little bit. But what Grover's algorithm is doing, if we go back to the trophy finding example, is that all of those people are looking simultaneously for the same thing. Like in the book analogy, Grover's algorithm can reduce the search space using superposition and entanglement. So entanglement is a mechanism where they can all talk to each other incredibly quickly, instantaneously, over any distance, by the way. And superposition is the way in which they can look at multiple states simultaneously. And then when you apply the Grover's algorithm to those two quantum effects, we're also in a situation where we can reduce the search space significantly as well. So it's not just the fact that we're doing it quicker and we can, and each individual can talk to each other simultaneously. It's also the fact that each time we look, the search space reduces. So this is the power of quantum computing. And this is why it gets me quite excited, because I think in an unstructured search environment, like we have with network intrusion detection, like we have with SIEM, like we have with incident investigation, we can search through this massive information in far quicker. Far quicker than AI can do, and AI can do it far quicker than we can do. But you put the two together, just think how quick we can identify problems in cyberspace.
It makes me think about the application of these two technologies coming together in the examples that you've given there. In almost every incident that we respond to, the data sets are large and it's always unorganized. So the application to our day-to-day work life within Samurai would be huge. You could do multiple investigations at any given time with a fraction of the time spent. Do you have any other ideas on how this can be applied within cybersecurity? I'm thinking on both sides of the fence, we're looking at a defensive position, protecting companies, but can it also be used to attack? Are there any other defensive applications?
Well, I mean, AI has a yeah. I mean, let's think about this. Let's think about this in terms of so we put in a research proposal relatively recently. I can't say who it was to. It's very highly guarded, all of this is, but we put a research proposal in for a system which was essentially designed to test IOC devices, not IOC, IoT devices, to see whether industrial control system IoT devices, to see whether they were vulnerable. One of the methods in which we were planning to do that is using smart fuzzing. And smart fuzzing, because we talked about fuzzing, didn't we, I think, in episode 1. But smart fuzzing is a way where you throw the information at the system and you get information back, with the goal of breaking it. But smart fuzzing will actually look at the information that comes back, and its next attempt at trying to break it will change, because its next attempt to try and break it will be based on the information it's had back. It looks at that information, analyzes that information, and thinks, have I upset it in some way? No, I haven't. Oh, okay, I'll just try again with another random fuzz. But if it gets something back that hasn't broke it, but maybe slowed it a little, maybe it took it a little bit longer to respond than it did on a different iteration, it thinks, I might be onto something there. So it uses that same data and modifies it and twists it. And maybe the next time it throws it out, it's a little bit slower to respond. And it looks at that data. And ultimately, it uses its learning, its understanding, to fathom out which bit of that data is causing it to slow down. And then you know what it's going to do next, don't you? It takes the bit that slows it down, the bit that's causing it trouble, and just throws all of that at it. And then all of a sudden the thing stops working, you've got a denial of service. So that's how AI could do that. But AI takes ages to do that. It takes ages to do that. Imagine if the AI could throw all of that variation of random data, just masses and masses of randomized data sets simultaneously, and it could read the responses almost immediately as well, and then could find the issue that was causing the slowdown massively quicker, and then just focus on that. I mean, you could cause total chaos, absolute chaos with industrial control systems. You could, close down gas supplies, turn off the electricity, poison people's water, cause issues with nuclear reactors. I mean, it's terrifying, So that's another example, but give me 5 minutes and I'll give you another half dozen.
That example reminds me, we know that within certain sectors that we can't talk about, certain sectors are facing DOS challenges at the moment. Many sectors are. And given that you can correlate lots of data and put lots of power behind a goal, such as the fuzzing example, being able to scan all things at once very quickly, do you think that people should be worried about the potential future of DDoS attacks as a result of these technologies combining?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely they should. For the reasons I've just stated with industrial control systems, you could apply that to any system. And particularly now
a large
where
botnet
we're
behind it.
Right. And also think about what's going on with Internet of Things now. I mean, your TV's smart, your fridge is smart, your washing machines, fridges, smart houses, smart cities that are going to be vulnerable to these kind of attacks. So, I mean, it's going to be coming first with AI, and then it's going to be steroid injected when we get quantum computing. I do think there's going to be a big gap between those two, by the way. I mean, AI is going to be causing disruption well before we get quantum computing working. I promise you that. Quantum computing, I'm thinking 10, 15, maybe even 50. I mean, this thing isn't now. AI is now, right? The threat's now. Quantum computing, it's coming. It's on the horizon, but it's coming. And it's getting a lick on as well.
It's worrying that quite a lot of these attacks can be amplified by quantum and AI. Do you have any thoughts around how we should be focusing on the defensive side of cybersecurity when joining these two together?
Well, we kind of touched on this before, didn't we? I think we talked about this. We talked about how entanglement could be used to scupper AI's efforts to break encryption. Although, as I said before, my worry there is, AI is coming a lot quicker than quantum computing is. In fact, it's here now. So we have the potential possibilities of using the speeding up process of superposition and the ability to detect when you're being looked at with entanglement and the communication speeds with entanglement, acting as a protector, a new way of encrypting data. So we talked about that in episode 2. So and again, we've talked today about using AI in unstructured searches, and then we talked about using quantum computing in unstructured searches. So we already talked about how, from a defensive point of view, AI can help us and how quantum computing can help us. But of course, it's a double-sided coin, isn't it? You've got the protection on one side and the attack on the other side. The arms race isn't going to change. It's going to stay. As the new technologies come along, the arms race is still going to be there between hacker and protector. It's going to be a different game that we're playing, but the principles will be the same. The technologies will change, but the principles will be the same.
And I suppose just as Samurai's ethos right now is to, if you can understand how an attacker acts and thinks and the tools that they use, and you apply that to your own organization to test to see if you're vulnerable, then that will aid you somewhat in putting defenses in place to stop others from doing the same thing. And I think based on what you're saying there, that arms race is not only going to continue, but to accelerate at great speed. And the need for both sides to be working together on both offensive and defensive technologies is more important now than more than ever.
Well, that hasn't changed, has it? It's always been that way. I don't see any shift in the paradigm there. And the other thing, if we're going to think from a human perspective before we all start panicking that we're all going to be made redundant, and I don't know, maybe we are. I don't know, but not yet. But maybe we are. I don't see people sort of suddenly becoming redundant from their positions in huge quantities with AI, although there will be some. But I think when you put that with quantum, I think the whole of, I'm going to say it. I think the whole of humanity is going to be in a real pickle. We're going to be in a real pickle then. Because you talk about supervised and unsupervised learning, right? So these are the two methods of AI. Supervised being you have an expert to help train the AI, and in my humble opinion, and I know a few AI professors that may disagree, but there's supervised learning with you telling the human and instructing the human. With the human telling the AI and instructing the AI and guiding the AI. Oftentimes are better. Sometimes you can't. It's just not possible in a scenario to do it. Or you want to look at things in a different way, so you don't want the human interaction. But in many cases, that you still need that supervision, the human to say, look at this, look at that, think about this, think about the other. It's the same now, right? We're already at that stage, aren't we, with ChatGPT? When you're asking it questions and it gives you an answer you don't like, you change the prompt, you try again. In a way, you're supervising ChatGPT to give you the information that you require. So very loosely, it isn't supervised learning. I'm just trying to dumb. I don't think anybody's dumb on this podcast, but simplify this a little. And then you have unsupervised learning where you're just you're just throwing the information at the AI and asking it to find the differences. But I think when quantum comes into the equation, it's at that point where I fear that the supervised part may not be so important. And that when you reach that point, the human becomes less necessary. And particularly when you reach the point where, if you've got quantum and AI together, who's going to be the better teacher? It or us? Is it going to teach itself faster and better than we could? And that's the part where I see this massive, huge exponential explosion happening. This combination of quantum and AI, when we hit this point where it's so much better than we are, that it's 20 steps ahead of us, 100,000 steps ahead of us, and we just won't be able to compete.
And we're talking about AI training itself.
We're talking about AI training itself, yeah. Yeah, which is already happening, by the way. That's something happening now, even before quantum. But imagine when quantum comes along. Combine those two together. And then, you're taking something that's already scary and turning it into something that's terrifying. And incredibly exciting in equal measure. I had equal amounts of excitement and terror at the same time. But do you know who talks about this? I really like the comedian Ben Elton, right? Ben Elton's got a big thing about AI at the moment. There's a lot of comedy around AI, and he's like, we're talking about how brilliant it's going to be and how it's going to make us all redundant and all the rest of it. Because why isn't anybody terrified? Why aren't we all terrified? And I think we're not terrified because we just don't realize the impact of what's coming. It is very scary.
I don't want people to be walking away from this podcast with an existential crisis by any means, worried about the future of AI. Perhaps it's a little dose of that is healthy.
Or maybe they should be.
If you're not both worried and excited about the future, then you're not thinking about it enough, I suppose.
I guess, yeah. I mean, we've got this whole thing about. Sorry, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to ask before we wrap up today's episode. I did want to ask a bonus question at the end. Given the scenario that you mentioned there around AI training, AI powered by quantum, and the ceiling of that is currently unknown, but we both agree that it's both terrifying and scary. Do you ever think
and exciting?
What are your views on artificial intelligence surpassing humans? Do you think it'll get smarter than us? Do you ever think it will develop any form of consciousness?
The first part's easy. The first question is easy. Would it get smarter than us? Yes. Unquestionably. If you're defining intelligence from an algorithmic, mathematical point of view, of course, you can also define intelligence by emotional intelligence rather than sort of your more traditional IQ method. That one, I'm not sure as I want to delve into because I'm not sure about it. But certainly from what I find interesting is what a lot of physicists and psychologists refer to as the hard problem, which is why are we conscious? And I'm really getting sidetracked. You've sidetracked me here. Where does consciousness arrive from? And that's one of my pet subjects. I'm sorry, we're moving out of cybersecurity a little here. I could probably find a route in with social engineering, actually, but we'll leave it for the time being. What makes us conscious? And so there's this theory that Roger Penrose has put forth. He put it forth with somebody else. I can't remember the name of the other person now. Roger Penrose being probably the most well-known physicist, quantum physicist, particle physicist in the world at the moment, arguably. who came out with this theory that he thought that consciousness came around as a result of quantum interactions between microtubules, which are protein structures in the brain, and consciousness arrived from that. And then you could move into the potential of how the microtubules in a state of entanglement in your brain with the rest of the universe could lead to the whole speculative idea that our own observation of the universe changes it, which we've seen some evidence of course, with Feynman slit and many other experiments as well that have shown that. And then when we start to consider that we're looking at using quantum computing in AI, then we're again talking about using quantum and quantum states to create intelligence if we're combining it with AI. So I wonder, right, is it going to be at that point where genuine consciousness and sentience arrives? And if we're talking about something that has the ability to think quicker, to teach itself quicker, that can outperform us by an enormous magnitude in terms of calculations and intelligence, and it becomes sentient because it's working in the quantum realm. Geez, where does that leave us?
Almost full circle.
Yeah, I can't see where we fit in after that point, to be honest. And I'll leave that with your own imagination, but that's just my particular views.
I have heard that some say humans are merely the bootloaders to intelligence of a greater form.
When you say some, you mean me, don't you? Because I think I told you that.
Perhaps I shall quote that, Dr. David Day.
I'm not the first. I'm not the first to say it.
Maybe we are the bootloaders, maybe we're not. But I think that would be a perfect point to close off today's episode. And I'd like to take this opportunity to
I agree. I think we've already gone too far. Right?
We were about to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we'll save that topic for next week, I think.
Claw our way back out that rabbit hole.
Indeed. So I think the TLDR is AI and quantum, superpower, super scary, exciting.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.